Well, a very good afternoon. Welcome to Les Sables d'Olonne. As if you need any reminding, it is Christmas Eve, the 24th of December. It's day 46 on the racecourse, and patience is required out in front of the fleet, where this anticyclone is still causing problems. It's a little bit of a monster moving with them. The boats behind keep bumping into the light winds, and the boats in front just can't get away. So different strategies at the front of the fleet. Yannick Bestaven is going north to find the stronger breeze. Charlie Dallin, meantime, is sailing the shortest distance. So who's going to get the Christmas presents and who's going to get the Christmas stuffing? Who will be the Christmas stars and who will be the turkeys this Christmas? So, and none other than Clarice Kramer. Well, she'll get two Christmases because she's crossing the anti-meridian, and so a lucky girl indeed. Our guest today is Marcus Hutchison at home in the beautiful Irish town of Kinsale. Marcus, how are you?
I'm good. It's cold and brisk here this morning. I've just been for a walk with the dog, hence my poor hair styling. No, it's all good here. Looking forward to seeing how the next 2 or 3 days plays out at the front of the fleet, because it's potentially a very key moment for the rest of the race.
You speak with Thomas?
Yeah, I spoke to him yesterday and the night before. He's
on the edge of his seat.
He's clearly got big decisions. He's played his hand. He's going north, as you pointed out there, to try and get around the top of this thing. He doesn't see any way other for him in his position other than to go the long way around. And he's also pretty nervous about whether they slip through or not, whether it works for them, and also the fact that the rest of the fleet is catching up from behind. So, it's. I don't think the Christmas presents will be doled out tomorrow to those guys. I think it's going to be probably Boxing Day or even the day after before we really know how it's panned out.
And how are you dealing with the tension, Marcus?
Well, it's always the same. Every 4 years, the family knows that it's a Christmas period during a Vendée Globe. Regrettably, I've had a few poor experiences in the past. It's just part of the nature of the job. At least I'm together with the family this year, whereas 4 years ago, well, we spent Christmas Day together, but we knew that the day after I had to head off to help Paul Mayer finishing his race in. Of all places, it wasn't too bad for me, but it broke the family thing. I ended up in Tahiti waiting for Paul to get up there and take his boat apart and ship it home. But I also had Enda Okunin, who was in the last race. And although he retired a bit later with a dismasting, he was already in a spot of bother at this stage of the race. And so it's always a stressful time when you've got boats at sea because you want to disconnect at Christmas like everybody else does, but you can't.
Indeed. We'll come back to that in one moment, Marcus. We're going to have a quick look at the standings at midday. Well, as Marcus said, Thomas is lost a few miles at the moment. He's in third, but starting off with Yannick Bestaven, he was doing 12 knots on the speed gun up till midday, and he is 26.8 miles ahead of Charlie Dallin. Charlie's come back over the course of yesterday and today, made a little handful of miles. He's 26.8 miles behind, but obviously quite significant lateral separation to Yannick Bestaven now. Thomas Riong, as I said, 257.9. He's been caught up a little bit by Boris Herrmann. Boris is at 365.3. He's only 3 or 4 miles ahead of Jean Le Cam. This group regrouping all the time, really. Benjamin Dutreux is at 370 compared to Boris Herrmann's 365. 374 for Damien Sagan in 7th. Isabel Joshkin at 375. Giancarlo Podotti a little bit further behind, but 409. 447 for Maxime Sorel. So that all the way from 4th to 10th is incredibly close. Louis Burton making some good advances after he stopped. He's now only about just on 200 miles between him and Maxime Sorel, and going fast. He's making good distances. Clarice Kramer is in 12th. Alan Rura, our Swiss skipper, going nicely, still a little bit in between two packs, as it were, in 15th. Pip Hare sailing an excellent race at the present moment. She's heading south and is now over 100 miles clear of Didac Costa. Stéphane Landeraison in between. We spoke with Stéphane, as you'll hear shortly. Jeremy Biou is past Manu Cousin. That was his next victim. And next on the list will be, unfortunately, our Spanish fireman, Didac Costa. Jeremy is only about 30 miles or so behind. Next page of the standings, Kojiro Shiraishi going very, very nicely just now. Made over 400 miles in the last 24 hours and doing 17, 18 knots. Miranda Merrin is in good spirits in 23rd. And Ariasella, well, he really is setting his own course. He's doing his own thing. He sets his limits and sticks to them. And he's just about finished olive chocolate, pre-Christmas chocolate. And we'll catch up with Ari in a moment. Marcus, who's impressing you in the race other than obviously the top three just now?
Look, they all are. They all are impressing me because it's not been straightforward at all, this race. I love seeing the rookies discovering this long-term exploit in the South for the first time. I've never had the chance to do it myself, but I've watched a few people over the years get to grips with it, and I enjoy that the most. I think seeing newcomers to it really getting it. I'm very impressed with Pip Hare. I really wasn't expecting her to be as competitive as she is. So hats off to her and her team. I like what Maxime Sorel has been doing as well. I've obviously got a bit of affinity with that boat as well. I sold him that boat, so I'm very happy to see that he's doing well with it. And yeah, look, all of them are doing a fantastic job. It's amazing to think that we're more than halfway around the race, and we've still got so many boats in the fleet, and I'm hoping it stays that way, and that all of them get out. It's an unusual race, as we know. This one, this time around, it's going to be very slow. There's an awful lot still to be played for, but no, they're all doing a fantastic job. I can't really point out anyone in particular other than those I've mentioned.
I mean, I think that Pippa is pushing very hard, but she's also sailing a nice race in terms of her strategy. She's not afraid to push the boat and to go south.
No, and every time, I mean, I don't follow every boat in super depth, but every time I see a video from her, she's calm and poised, and I don't know Pip at all. I've never actually met her. We've obviously passed on the pontoon several times, but I just feel a great energy coming from her and her boat, and you know, it's you know, she's just doing a great job. Just what the spirit of the Vendée Globe is for first timers, and discovering it nicely. You know, clearly people like Clarisse Kramer are doing an amazing job as well, but from perhaps a more dare I say it, professional end. You know, she's doing a great job as a sailor, and I love that they're bringing back so much video footage for us and sharing everything there. But just raw energy. I love what Pip's doing.
Indeed, and this kind of battle at the front of the fleet. How do you think that's going to play out? Do you have any?
Well, it's fascinating.
I know what you want.
Hats off to Yannick Besteven. He's showing the way. He's been very understated all the time. He bought one of the best boats from the last cycle. He's obviously modified it. He's got a great team around him. They've been very discreet in their preparation. And he's been there, and I think the boat's in perfectly good shape. It's obviously the same or very similar to Louis Burton's boat, but clearly a little bit more reliable when it matters. And Yannick obviously is no lightweight. He knows his way around and stuff, and he's just sailing a very mature, sensible race. And it's fascinating to see how it's playing out. I'm obviously would rather Thomas Rion was further ahead than he is. He's had a few issues, but I think perhaps the message that we can see from this, both for Thomas and for Charlie, is that, you know, their boats are effectively brand new. And Yannick Besteven's boat, it wasn't his boat 4 years ago, but he didn't make it past Cape of Good Hope, Cape Town last time because of gear failure. I think it broke a rudder or something like that. So, you know, it is again testament to the fact that these boats need so much time to sort things out and get reliable and stuff. But there's no taking it away from the exploits of the skippers. It is about the sailors, and the sailors, the way they manage their boats and position themselves and pace themselves. You know, it's fantastic. And Yannick clearly is mastering it at the moment. He's made all the right choices.
Indeed. Now, if you don't mind kind of reliving that previous Christmas, just what happened and when, and what was it like for yourself?
Well, stupidly, I had two boats in the last race that I was looking after. One was an amateur entry, which was Endo Kunin, which was very much of the adventure side, and he perhaps wasn't as prepared as he ought to have been as a sailor. And but it's, you take these projects on and you have to see them all the way through. And he'd already had quite a few problems, even going down the Atlantic, and he kept going as far as he could. But he had electrical problems and communication problems and mainsail track problems, and he ended up in Stewart Island at about this time. And then Paul, who was doing extremely well at this time on SMA, who was in third place, and duking it out with, he was with Jeremy Bayou. The two of them had been fighting for third and fourth place. And anyway, unfortunately, at about this stage, Paul broke his hydraulic ram in the keel ram. And his keel couldn't be moved one way or the other, and so he had to lash it in the middle. And the safest thing for us to do, because he was actually further across the Pacific at this stage, he had to go to Tahiti. You see these fantastic pictures there. Now it sounds all very glamorous, and it was when we got there, but it was pretty stressful because it took him 10 days to get from where he effectively gave up or turned north. Before he got out of the Southern Ocean and into the tropics and there. And obviously the boat was not very fit. He was in a very middle of the nowhere situation, close to Point Nemo, and he couldn't get to New Zealand because it was upwind. We didn't want him to go downwind to Chile because of the lee shore situation. And so the safest solution was for him to go north. But anyway, I headed out on Boxing Day with a couple of the team to Tahiti. You can see us here in these images. It was quite an amazing experience there. There's Paul arriving in Papeete. I guess it would have been, I don't know, 5th or 6th of January. I can't remember the date exactly now, but it was a bit surreal, to be honest. And a lot of people said, because we had I don't know if you'll see it in the images later, we had a lot of beautiful Tahitian dancers on the pontoon to welcome him in, and it was a great experience, but obviously very, very deceptive, because that was the end of his race and he'd been in third place. So that was a Christmas destroyed from a family point of view, because we headed out
and
there.
you had Enda at the same time.
Yeah.
Indeed. Somebody who's having a better Christmas this time is Stefan Lederes. Only 4 years ago at this point he was heading towards Melbourne, having broken his mast, and Stefan was telling us earlier how that felt.
Yeah, in 2016 it was totally different again, because the mast was broken 1 week before Christmas. So I was sailing to Melbourne, very slow. It was a speed of maybe 3 knots, 4 knots, so it was a long time. Was of course disappointed. I was disappointed with this experience, but it was a good memory, because Christmas is already. It's always a different day, and I remember who opened the gift I had, and it was an experience. To be alone on the boat, it's an experience. But to be honest, I prefer this year with the same situation, to be alone on my boat, but with my mast still in a race and with the course to the Hearst.
What do you have programmed on board for Christmas? Do you have some special food and drink and a little party, perhaps?
Yes, for sure. I catch every opportunity to to organize party on board. So first, I will talk with my family and children. I will call them, and I'm looking forward to speak with them. And then I have a special dinner with, I don't know how to translate, but you can trust me, it's a very nice food with champagne, and for sure with music, dancing. It's good for energy, and singing, and realize how lucky I am to be here today and to realize I'm living my dream.
So plenty of Christmas spirit on board Stéphane Le Deraison's boat today. He's lying in 15th and doing about he's doing about 15 knots and lying in 18th place. So that's Stéphane Le Deraison. Marcus, where does this kind of leave us looking forward in 4 years' time, for example? What would you be learning from this race in particular in terms of boat design and reliability?
Well, that's a very loaded question, Andy. There's several things obviously that immediately come to mind, but I would say that the lessons that we learn the same lessons every time, unfortunately, and that is that preparation is everything, and preparation often is curtailed by lack of time, or most of it is about time management. And I think the priority of boat development as opposed to actual time on the water and doing miles is always the great trade-off when you start to, what your ambitions are when you start the program. If your ambitions are high, whether you start with the best boat that you can get your hands on, or whether you decide to build a new boat, whether you have the funding to do that, or the energy or the team to do that with you, because you don't just buy a new boat without having a squad around you. All of these things, unfortunately, are variables that quite often you don't necessarily control when you're starting a project, but they are quite often the most important decisions that you make in the project are the ones right at the very beginning. The first 5, I always say, are the most important decisions that you ever make in a project. But then going on from that, when you're designing these new boats, we design foiling boats to benefit from their high speed potential in the Atlantic. Clearly, we've seen foil reliability issues or just hull reliability issues with some boats. I don't necessarily think that the decisions are wrong. I mean, every cycle is new. And, I'd hate to think that in 4 years' time, Charlie Dallin and Thomas Rion's boats today would be the boats that would have 2,000-mile leads on whatever new boats are built for next time around. It's just the nature of this sport, and the nature of the fact that we rely on so many variables, especially the weather and time and preparation. And so, I don't really want to list anything in particular other than that if anybody's thinking of doing this, don't wait. Get going as soon as you can and make sure your ambitions are realistic.
Indeed. Let's have a quick look at the weather then, as it stands just now for particularly for the leaders of the top 3 just now. So Christmas Eve, and the suspense is continuing at the head of the fleet on this 9th edition of the Vendée Globe, and the leader Yannick Bestaven, well, he's taking this northerly option, perhaps looking to get up to this low pressure system. Now he has got a fair amount of tight reaching and upwind work when he gets up to the north, but the benefit is on the north side he'll get into the downwind conditions eventually, but sailing much more distance, but sailing faster than Charlie Dallin, who's down here continuing to just try and push in front of the high all the time, perhaps getting caught, perhaps not, but he's sailing a shorter distance along the exclusion zone. Meantime, a slightly more middle course in terms of strategy for Thomas Rion in 3rd. And this group behind are behind the centre of the high pressure. The faster they go, the more they push into the light winds. So it's a kind of game of patience for them a little bit. So that's the general situation. Let's quickly look at the animation. Hopefully this works very, very nicely, because it is Christmas after all. And that's still the other screen, but never mind, here we go. Let me just go round here and start it. It is the pantomime season after all. There we go. So this is watching Yannick Bestaven here, this low pressure developing up here. And at the moment he's on the top of the high, he's starting to be upwind and looking at this low pressure. All the time, Charlie Dallin taking this option, we think, to sail the shortest distance. Watching the high move away progressively. This is now Saturday, so into the weekend we see Yannick Bestaven in the front of the low in the best possible conditions. and this group behind working at the back of the low, and they will compress up with the, certainly with Charlie Dallin. But the advantage is always with the Yannick Best-Seven. Not really quite sure how much compression there will be or whether they'll get away. This is a very much a kind of theoretical routing. But then getting on the back of that low and getting away into the middle part of next week. So everything to play for over Christmas and Christmas week. Indeed, an exciting Christmas week ahead. Marcus, tell us a little bit more about the LinkedOut project. How important is the actual result to the backers of the project, for example?
The sports result, you mean?
Yes.
Well, clearly, if you're in the front runners, you get talked about an awful lot more than if you're in the middle of the pack. And so clearly, if you win the race, you do extremely well. If you finish on the podium, you've probably been near the podium for a lot of the time. And so the exposure generated by that lends credibility to the message that you're giving, regrettably. And the message is always valid, but it just gets an awful lot more exposure if your sporting performance is there as well. So, I mean, to answer your question, we're delighted with the exposure that Tom is getting, and things have conspired for us in many respects. Where everybody knows that the Vendée Globe is receiving an awful lot more media exposure, perhaps due to the COVID situation. It's one of the great positive stories that's going on at the moment, in spite of all the horrible things that are happening elsewhere. And so we're benefiting from that. There's no question about it. And LinkedOut are doing really well. They've placed an awful lot of people already in employment, but more to the point, there's still a lot of job offers coming in. There's a lot of interviews going on for the various candidates that were presented by LinkedOut at the beginning of the Vendée Globe. And I would encourage everybody to check out that site. Obviously, it only works in France for now, but it's a societal charity that is putting homeless people back to work, and it's having great success.
And how long has that been going on for, this initiative?
The charity behind it is called Entourage, has existed for 3 years now, I believe. But the product, LinkedOut, is a product of that. It's an app, basically, and that is basically just a very simple tech way of sharing CVs. It's a bit like LinkedIn, but for people that don't have a network, and it's up to the charity and all of us to promote those people. The charity collects, gathers people from the street and trains them and helps them back into society. It's a long process for many. A lot of them have had real problems in lives, addictions and mental problems and things like that. And so Entourage accompanies them over a long period, gets them back into accommodation and coaches them, gets them back into a good space mentally and ready for the employment market, which is something that they all badly want, is to have the dignity of being able to work again. And then the other really nice thing is an awful lot of the partners of this, big corporations that are not only associated with our projects, but with the LinkedOut project, their staff helps with coaching, and it's really a really very positive thing. We basically put the CVs up on the LinkedOut website, and you just look on them and click on a link below and say, "Hey, brother-in-law, I'm sending you this because I thought it would be interesting. You told me the other day you're looking for a gardener or somebody to paint your house. Why don't you try this guy or this girl who wants to work in the restaurant business or something like that?" Anyway, there's all sorts, and the stories are amazing, and it's all there on our site, and it is working. And the exposure that Toma is generating for the charity during the race is not hurting at all.
Indeed, very, very good news, an initiative that hopefully we can see maybe extended to elsewhere in terms of the model, for sure. So then, Ari Husela has been, as we all know, opening his advent calendars seemingly for weeks and weeks. But we are getting towards Christmas, and Ari, as you'd imagine, is in great form on board start today.
So one thing. Good. Santa Claus is from Finland.
Exactly.
Santa Claus is from Korvatunturi, which is in Finnish Lapland. So that's why we are so proud of this Santa Claus thing and Christmas.
And that's why you grew the beard as well, Ari, is it? Especially for Christmas.
Yeah. I try to look like my my idol, Santa Claus.
Your idol. So how's things? You've started celebrating Christmas for 20 days now, I think. 25 days.
Yeah, 24 days. Yeah, this was the last Christmas calendar box, and I got some nice. Guess what? Chocolate. Chocolate egg, which has inside some chocolate eggs.
But so, Ari, what are you going to do after Christmas? No more advent calendar.
Yeah, that's a pity. Yeah, I don't know how my days are passing. Then I try to fix something. Maybe I try to start to sail a bit more.
Exactly. And what's on the menu for Christmas? You have an extended Christmas, being Father Christmas.
I already had some porridge. You know, in Finland we start Christmas always with a rice porridge in the morning, and that's what I already had.
Do you have a little drink, perhaps, to celebrate?
I actually have some, but I only give that to Neptunus when I pass those capes.
And what about presents?
And about saying, yeah, I get some bags here. They are quite plain bags, but I got some presents and some sweets, of course, a bit more sweets. So I'm happy with this.
So tell us then, how do you wish us Merry Christmas in Finnish?
It's going to be difficult for you, but we say hyvää joulua, hyvää joulua.
Perfect. So Ari Hasila, our very own Father Christmas on board Stark. Marcus, just finishing off with a quick word about Ari. I mean, he's got as much energy as anybody on the fleet and loving his race.
Yeah. Ari's a great guy. I got to know him over the last year and a half, 2 years, because he was clearly one of the adventurers battling to get his program going. But he was proof once again that if you're motivated, you can make things happen. And I'm delighted he's out there. I'm delighted he's enjoying himself. But what a great character.
I think he's going to have a little bit of a slump after Christmas. But Marcus, thank you so much for joining us once again. A very good Christmas to you and your family and everybody in Kinsale. And we'll see you next week, hopefully.
All right. Cheers, Andy.
So it's Marcus Hutchison joining us, the project manager from Thomas Riong's team from LinkedOut. So a little bit of a Christmas present today for Damien Sagan. He'd been up his mast repairing and he came down. He had a little bit of a visit from a couple of whales. We'll see that in just 1 second, but do join us again tomorrow, Christmas Day. It's open season, no particular guests. But we're going to try and connect with as many boats as we can. So join us tomorrow. And in the meantime, Merry Christmas for those of you who are celebrating this evening. And this is Damien Sagan and his little early Christmas present.
Ah, c'est vraiment une chance incroyable. Une chance incroyable.